Following the Steven Crowder meltdown, the Majority Report has been getting some attention from the right wing. All right, well, that's interesting. So now Sam Seder has a history of debating libertarian callers and, dismantling them, destroying them. But now he's getting some big ones. One of the more recent libertarian callers is actually the chairman of the board of the Ayn Rand Institute, Yaron Brook, who had a debate with Sam over regulations, especially involving the towers in Surfside, Florida, that had collapsed. I want to show you some of that, where this guy's going to make an incredibly terrible argument. Take a look.
But you know what? I also like the incentive of, in a free market, not in the world in which we live now, where everybody hides behind the government, of the insurance company that insured that building, because they've got a lot of claims that they're going to have to pay now, and they're going to take a big hit. They, in a free market, they would have sent an inspector. Now, in the world we live in today, they don't, because they rely on the government inspector, which probably was not a good idea.
No,
because
the government inspector made it quite clear that there were problems there. The private inspector, I'm sorry,
20 years ago when the building was built with a basis.
I'm sorry. The private inspectors also, the engineering company that was in there, the private owners of that building made the decision not to fix it. Now, were there stricter government regulations?
Then why are we worried about it? Then they made a decision and they suffered the consequences.
Because there's 100
people who made a decision, who made a bad decision, and suffer the consequences of it. I'm not justifying the building collapsing. I'm saying that people make decisions. If I make a decision to walk into the street without looking, should the driver be limited in his capacity to drive because I made a stupid decision? The point is that there are, what you want is for the people who make the decision to suffer, to benefit from the consequence of their actions.
Okay. So I'm actually a little confused by this video, okay? Because on the one hand, he's talking about, oh, well, the owners of the condo and the insurance companies, well, they're going to lose out. And so they're the ones, the building owners especially, they're the ones that should be held with the consequences. And then he makes that ridiculous comparison by saying, well, they made a bad decision. Well, who made a bad decision? The people who live there? Because that's kind of what I got from it. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm like reading into what he was saying. But when he said, like, oh, if I make a decision to walk into the street without looking, should the driver who hits me be limited in his capacity to drive because I made a stupid decision? So that to me sounds like he's blaming the people that are living there, or that were living there in the condo, for dying as a result of the condo collapsing. That's ridiculous. That is, and again, maybe I'm not, again, maybe I'm reading into this, or else no one else caught that because of the rest of the stupidity of his argument. But that's disgusting. If you're going to blame people who, by the way, would not know, how is a regular person who's living in that condo, living in that building, going to know if the structure itself that they're living in is sound? Well, they're not. They generally think, well, look, I pay rent, or I pay for this building. I assume that it's safe. And if it's not, shouldn't it be up to the owners or the people to come and tell us, hey, this is not safe, maybe you should move somewhere else? I mean, you would think so. But anyway, now, I first of all, I love how, I should say second of all, I love the idea that he says, oh, if we only had a free market, everything would be great. But we don't have a free market, and it doesn't exist. There is no such thing as a quote-unquote free market. And it's amazing how then he also claims, like a lot of libertarians do, well, nothing would ever go wrong if the government stayed out of everything. That is his supposition. That's what he believes. Now, here's the thing. They had a government inspector and a private inspector. They both warned of major structural damage to the building that would only get worse with time. And he said, well, you got to fix that. And the owners were like, yeah, we'll get to it. But then they didn't. In fact, less than 3 months before the collapse, the condo association president said the condition of the building had, quote, gotten significantly worse since the inspection in 2018. They knew, but then they still said, oh, well, look, we don't want to spend the money. That's it. I mean, yeah, we know it's bad. We know something is probably going to happen, but we're too cheap. And look, some of the repairs, of course, are going to be expensive. There was something about how the basement, the base of the building, everything was built completely flat, and it was supposed to be on an angle. And well, they didn't. And then going through, they would have to do something major to actually fix that, so that the water would drain properly, right? And so understand this, you got the water damage in there that gets in the cracks and the cement and weakens the structure. And then, of course, you had the climate change and with salt water coming in and weakening the structure further, all that stuff, right? So, but that would have been expensive. So instead of actually saying, well, what are our options? How can we finance this? Or should we just tell all the tenants, hey, but it's sad, but if you don't leave, it's going to fall over. No, they did nothing, and they continued to collect rent. That's it. That's what they were going to do. They knew. But again, who did not know? The people that were living there, the actual victims of this. They're the ones who really suffer the consequences of this building not being repaired. Not the condo owners who are like, oh, golly gee, now I have to, or the insurance companies, I have to pay out insurance claims, and oh, I lost the building, I lost my revenue stream. Yes, of course they're out money. But guess what? 46 people are confirmed dead. That's it. That we know of. 94 people are unaccounted for and are likely still buried under the rubble. They trusted, again, in the fact that the owners wouldn't allow such a massive structural flaw to exist. They were still paying them. And this is what the owners did to them. It's not about government versus free market. I mean, not just. It's also about the trust between a tenant and the landowner, or in this case, the condo owner. Was no rent here, and that applied. That allowed the government to come in and force this company to make these necessary repairs. And that's what Sam Seder was talking about. If the government had stronger regulations, then they could, yes, say, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to force you to make these repairs so that your building is actually safe. This isn't just a bad decision like, oh, oops, oh, I messed it up. No, this is an absolute tragedy that the so-called free market would not have fixed. I mean, look, here's what I would do. All right. So for me, I would pass a law, okay, that if there's in cases like this, regulation, if inspectors find a problem in the building, you are, obligated to fix it. Relatively straightforward, right? If it's something that is going to cause the building to collapse, you should get it fixed. If you do not, you will get fined. But you will get fined more than what it takes to fix it. Well, no, how's that fair? Why are you going to fine me more than what it would take to fix? So that instead of paying a measly fine, you go and get it fixed. Because that's the whole point. That's the whole point. You want to get it fixed. You need to get it fixed. Not only that, but I would also be like, hey, there's a statute that you must inform your residents. If you do not fix this, if you do not get this fixed, then we are going to tell all the tenants that there is a significant structural flaw and allow them to break lease. There you go. That's what I would do. That is something that I think the local government could do. But because of people like Yaron Brooks, the Ayn Rand Institute, Ron DeSantis, we don't have stronger government regulation. We don't have enforcement. And what you do have, though, is people who are dead. Money, yes, can be replaced. People can't. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.